Jean Wu. The scream tore through the quiet apartment, raw and breathless, bouncing off the minimalist walls of his bedroom. Cynthia's fingers gripped the sheets beneath her, her dark skin gleaming with a thin sheen of sweat under the soft amber glow of his bedside lamp. Jean Wu hovered above her, tattooed arms caging her in, his black hair falling into his eyes. A slow, satisfied smile curved his lips as he watched her come undone beneath him. "Say it again," he murmured in that low, accented voice that sent shivers down her spine. "Jean Wu." This time it came out softer, almost tender, and he leaned down to capture her lips in a kiss that was nothing like the heated passion of moments before. This kiss was slow, deliberate, full of something neither of them had words for yet. 3 months ago, Cynthia never would have imagined she'd be here. 3 months ago, she would have rather eaten glass than be in the same room as Park Jean Wu, let alone screaming his name in ecstasy. But life has a funny way of turning enemies into lovers, and for Cynthia Okafor and her insufferable Korean neighbor, it all started on a sweltering July afternoon in Seoul. The smell of egusi soup wafted through the hallway of the Hanamdong apartment building, rich with the aroma of ground melon seeds, stockfish and palm oil. Cynthia hummed along to Burna Boy as she stirred the pot, her hips swaying to the Afrobeat rhythm that pulsed through her small but cozy apartment. She'd been in Seoul for 8 months now, working as a marketing consultant for a tech startup in Gangnam. The job was demanding, the city was overwhelming, but she'd found her rhythm. Her little corner apartment on the 15th floor had become her sanctuary, a place where she could be unapologetically Nigerian in the heart of South Korea. The doorbell's sharp ring cut through her music. Frowning, Cynthia wiped her hands on her apron and padded to the door. Through the peephole she saw him, her next-door neighbor, the one she'd only glimpsed in passing. He was tall, dressed in all black despite the heat, with intricate tattoos snaking down both arms. His expression was thunderous. She opened the door a crack. "Yes. Your food," he said in English, his accent thick but clear. "It smells like rotten meat. The whole hallway stinks." Cynthia's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me. That smell. It's disgusting. Can you open a window or something?" Heat that had nothing to do with her cooking flooded Cynthia's face. She pulled the door open wider, planting one hand on her hip. "That disgusting smell is my dinner. It's called egusi soup, and it's a delicacy where I'm from." He wrinkled his nose. "Well, where you're from isn't here. This is Korea. We don't want to smell that." That what?" Cynthia's voice rose. "Say it. That African food. That's what you mean, isn't it?" Jean Wu's jaw tightened. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." She stepped back and started to close the door. "My food smells amazing. Maybe if you actually tried something outside of your comfort zone you'd know that. Now if you'll excuse me, I have dinner to finish." She slammed the door in his face, her heart pounding with indignation. Through the wood, she heard him mutter something in Korean before his footsteps retreated. "Rude," she muttered, turning back to her kitchen. "Absolutely rude." That was strike 1. Strike 2 came a week later at 2 in the morning. Cynthia jerked awake to the sound of bass pounding through her bedroom wall. The shared wall with her neighbor's apartment vibrated with what sounded like industrial techno music played at concert volume. She lay there for 10 minutes, hoping he'd turn it down. When he didn't, she grabbed her phone and called building security. 20 minutes later, the music finally stopped. The next morning, she ran into him in the elevator. He was wearing gym clothes, earbuds in, and completely ignored her. But she saw the smirk on his face, the way his eyes slid to her before looking away. He knew she'd reported him. And he didn't care. Strike 3 happened 2 days after that. Cynthia was leaving for work when she found a note taped to her door, written in surprisingly neat English. "Your heels are too loud in the morning. Some people work night shifts. Be considerate." No signature, but she knew exactly who it was from. Cynthia ripped the note down, crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. Then she made a point of wearing her loudest heels for the next week straight. The war had officially begun. Over the next 2 months, Cynthia and Jean Wu engaged in a cold war of petty grievances. She reported him to building management 3 more times for noise violations, twice for music, once for what sounded like power tools at midnight. He left passive-aggressive notes about everything from her cooking smells to the time she left a package in the hallway for 2 whole hours. They perfected the art of ignoring each other in the elevator, in the parking garage, in the mailroom. When forced to acknowledge each other's existence, their interactions were curt to the point of rudeness. "Your tattoos look infected," she told him once, just to be mean. "Your hair looks like a bird's nest," he shot back, eyeing her 2-day-old twist out. "At least I have hair to style. What's your excuse for that terrible undercut?" His eyes flashed, but the elevator doors opened before he could respond. He stalked out without another word, leaving her fuming and, if she was honest with herself, a little impressed by his restraint. The strange thing was, despite their mutual animosity, Cynthia found herself noticing things about him. The way he always held the lobby door for the elderly woman on the 12th floor. How he took the stairs when carrying heavy grocery bags so others could use the elevator. The time she saw him feeding the stray cat that lived behind the building, talking to it softly in Korean. But she pushed those observations aside. He was rude, inconsiderate, and apparently had something against African food. That was all she needed to know. Then came the rainy night that changed everything. The Seoul summer had given way to early autumn, and with it came the rain. Not the gentle drizzle Cynthia remembered from London visits, but the kind of torrential downpour that turned streets into rivers and made even the short walk from the subway to her building feel like swimming fully clothed. She'd worked late, staying at the office until nearly 11 to finish a presentation for a client meeting. When she finally packed up her things and headed for the subway, the rain had already started. By the time she reached her station, it was a full-blown storm. Cynthia stood under the station awning, staring at the wall of water between her and home. Her apartment building was only a 10-minute walk, but in this weather it might as well have been a mile. Her phone was at 15% battery. Her umbrella had broken on the way to work that morning, and she was wearing suede heels that would be ruined the moment she stepped outside. "Just go," she muttered to herself. "It's just rain. You've been through worse." But 15 minutes later, she was huddled in the building's entrance, soaked to the bone and shivering. Her keycard wasn't in her purse. She'd left it on her desk at work. "No, no, no," she whispered, digging through her bag again even though she knew it was futile. "This cannot be happening." The building's main entrance was locked after 10 p.m., accessible only by keycard or by being buzzed in by a resident. Her phone was now at 8%, and she didn't have any of her neighbors' numbers saved. Cynthia slumped against the wall, trying to decide between calling a locksmith, expensive, going back to the office, the subway would be closing soon, or just crying, free and cathartic. That's when the door opened. Jean Wu stood there in black joggers and a white t-shirt, holding a plastic bag from the convenience store. His hair was damp, droplets of rain clinging to the dark strands. For a moment they just stared at each other. "You're wet," he said finally, his eyes traveling over her bedraggled appearance. Very observant. Cynthia crossed her arms, hyper-aware of how her white blouse had turned translucent in the rain. "Why are you standing out here?" "I forgot my keycard at work. I was just about to." She trailed off, not really sure what she was about to do. Jean Wu studied her for a long moment. She could see him thinking, probably debating whether helping his enemy was worth the trouble. Then he sighed and held the door open wider. "Come on. You can call someone from my apartment." Cynthia hesitated. The last place she wanted to be was in Park Jean Woo's apartment. But her phone was dying, she was freezing, and the alternatives were looking increasingly grim. "Fine," she said, stepping past him into the warmth of the lobby. "But just to make a call. Obviously." He led her to the elevator, and they rode up in silence, water pooling at their feet. His apartment was the mirror image of hers but felt completely different. Where Cynthia had tried to make her space warm and cozy with colorful throw pillows and artwork from home, Jean Woo's place was all clean lines and muted colors. Black leather furniture, a massive TV mounted on the wall, shelves filled with vinyl records and art books. But what caught her attention were the paintings. Large canvases covered almost every available wall space, abstract works full of bold colors and aggressive brushstrokes. They were beautiful and chaotic and surprisingly emotional. "Did you paint these?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "Yes." He set his convenience store bag on the kitchen counter. "That's what I do. I'm an artist." That explained the odd hours and the occasional smell of paint thinner she'd noticed. "They're good. Thank you." He pulled 2 towels from a closet and handed her one. "Bathrooms down the hall if you want to dry off properly. I'll make tea." Cynthia took the towel, still processing this new information. Park Jin-woo was an artist. A good one from what she could see. Somehow, that made him seem less like a one-dimensional villain and more like an actual person. In the bathroom, she caught sight of herself in the mirror and groaned. Her makeup had run, her carefully styled hair was plastered to her head, and she looked like she'd lost a fight with a storm drain. She did her best to clean up, squeezing water from her hair and blotting her ruined blouse with the towel. When she emerged, Jin-woo had changed into dry clothes and set 2 steaming mugs on the coffee table. She sat gingerly on the edge of his couch, maintaining as much distance as possible. "Your phone," he said, holding out a charger. "It's universal. Thanks." She plugged in her phone and watched it flicker back to life. No missed calls. No one knew she was stranded. They sat in awkward silence, sipping tea. Some kind of Korean herbal blend that actually tasted better than Cynthia expected. The rain hammered against the windows, showing no signs of letting up. "I can call building maintenance," Jin-woo offered. "They can let you into your apartment. It's after 11. They won't come until morning." "Oh." He stared into his mug. "You could stay here, on the couch, until morning." The offer hung in the air between them. Cynthia knew she should say no, should find literally any other option. But she was exhausted, cold, and the thought of going back out into that storm made her want to cry. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." Jin-woo nodded and stood. "I'll get you some dry clothes. And blankets." While he was gone, Cynthia looked around the apartment again, seeing it with new eyes. There were photographs on one shelf. Jin-woo with an older couple who must be his parents, Jin-woo with a group of friends at what looked like an art gallery opening. In all of them, he was smiling, looking nothing like the scowling neighbor she'd come to know. He returned with an oversized hoodie and sweatpants. "These should fit. Bathroom's yours if you want to change." The clothes smelled like laundry detergent and something else, something distinctly him. Cynthia changed quickly, rolling up the sweatpants that were too long and drowning in the hoodie that hung to her knees. When she came out, Jin-woo had made up the couch with a proper pillow and thick blanket. He was already heading toward his bedroom but paused at the doorway. "Why do you hate me?" he asked suddenly. Cynthia blinked. "What?" "You've reported me to building management 5 times. You slam your door when you see me. You." He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "You hate me. Why?" "You said my food smelled like rotten meat," she said, her voice sharper than intended. "The first time we met, that's what you said to me." Jin-woo's face fell. I didn't mean. My Korean was bad. No, my English. I meant it was strong. Unfamiliar. Not bad, just different." "I said the wrong words." Cynthia stared at him. "You said it was disgusting." "No, I said it was there's a Korean word. It means strange or unfamiliar, but I translated it wrong in my head." He looked genuinely distressed. "I didn't mean to insult you or your culture. I was just... It was so strong and I'd never smelled it before, and I have this thing where I can't focus when there are strong smells. It's like sensory overload, and I just fucked up. I'm sorry." The apology seemed to cost him something. He looked away, jaw tight, hands shoved in his pockets. Oh, Cynthia said, feeling her anger deflate like a punctured balloon. I didn't know that. And the music, he continued, words coming faster now like a dam had broken. I don't work night shifts. That was a lie. Have insomnia. Really bad insomnia. I've had it since I was a teenager. Music helps, but I know I play it too loud sometimes. I forget other people are trying to sleep because I'm so focused on trying to trick my brain into being tired. Jean Wu. And your heels aren't that loud. I was just being an asshole because you reported me and I was mad. He finally looked at her again. I've been an asshole to you since we met, and you've been an asshole back, and we're both assholes, and I'm sorry. Silence settled between them, but it felt different than before. Lighter somehow. I'm sorry too, Cynthia said finally. For assuming the worst about you. And for reporting you so many times. And for that comment about your tattoos. They're actually really nice. A small smile tugged at his lips. Your hair doesn't look like a bird's nest. It's beautiful. All of the styles you do. I watch sometimes when I see you in the morning. The way you tie the scarves, how it's different every time. Warmth spread through Cynthia's chest. You notice my hair. I notice a lot of things about you. He said it simply like a fact. Good night, Cynthia. He disappeared into his bedroom before she could respond, leaving her standing in his living room, wearing his clothes, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Pretty. Cynthia lay awake on the couch for a long time, listening to the rain and thinking about misunderstandings and language barriers and how easy it was to hate someone when you didn't bother to understand them. She fell asleep thinking about the way Jean Wu had looked at her when he said he noticed things. Like maybe he'd been paying attention for different reasons than she'd thought. Cynthia woke to the smell of coffee and something sweet baking. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The couch beneath her was too firm, the blanket too heavy, and the light coming through the windows was all wrong. Then it came rushing back, the rain, the forgotten keycard, Jean Wu's apology. She sat up, pushing her borrowed hoodie sleeves up her arms, and followed the scent to the kitchen. Jean Wu stood at the stove, flipping what looked like hotteok Korean sweet pancakes. He was shirtless, revealing the full extent of his tattoos, intricate designs that wound up his arms, across his shoulders and down his back. A dragon, cherry blossoms, geometric patterns that seemed to tell a story she couldn't quite read. You're staring, he said without turning around. Cynthia felt heat rush to her face. I was just... The tattoos. How many do you have? Lost count after 15. He plated 2 hotteok and turned, and Cynthia's breath caught. There were more tattoos across his chest and ribs, disappearing into the waistband of his sweatpants. Coffee. Please. She forced herself to look at his face instead of his body. You didn't have to make breakfast. You're a guest. It would be rude not to. He poured her a cup, doctoring it with cream and sugar without asking how she took it. How did you know? I've seen you at the coffee shop downstairs. You always get it sweet and light. He slid the mug across the counter to her, looking almost embarrassed. I notice things, remember? They ate breakfast in a comfortable silence that would have been unthinkable 24 hours ago. The hotteok was perfectly crispy on the outside and gooey sweet on the inside, filled with brown sugar and cinnamon. These are amazing, Cynthia said around a mouthful. Where did you learn to cook? My grandmother. She raised me after my parents got divorced. Every morning, she'd make these for me before school. His expression softened with the memory. She said food was love in its purest form. That's why I felt so bad about what I said about your cooking. How Miani would have smacked me with a wooden spoon. Cynthia laughed, and the sound made Jean Wu smile. A real smile, not the smirk she was used to seeing. I'd like to meet her, Cynthia said. She sounds wonderful. She passed away 3 years ago. Jean Wu's voice was quiet. But yeah, she would have liked you. She always said I needed someone who wouldn't put up with my bullshit. Well, I definitely don't do that. I noticed. His eyes met hers, and something electric passed between them. "Cynthia, about last night." A loud knock interrupted him. "Building maintenance. We got a call about a lockout." Reality came crashing back. Cynthia jumped up from her seat. "That's for me. I should go." Jin-woo walked her to the door, and they stood there awkwardly, neither quite sure how to say goodbye after the strange intimacy of the night before. "Thank you," Cynthia said finally, "for letting me stay. And for breakfast. And for explaining. Thank you for listening." He reached out like he might touch her arm, then seemed to think better of it. "Maybe we could start over. As neighbors who don't hate each other." Cynthia smiled. "I'd like that." She let herself into her apartment with the maintenance man, changed into work clothes, and headed to the office. But all day, she found herself thinking about Jin-woo's smile, the way he'd remembered how she took her coffee, and the vulnerability in his voice when he talked about his grandmother. After that morning, things shifted. Cynthia and Jin-woo didn't become best friends overnight, but the hostility evaporated. They started acknowledging each other in the hallway with actual smiles. When they ran into each other at the convenience store, they'd chat about their days instead of pretending the other didn't exist. A week after the rainy night, Cynthia was struggling with her grocery bags when Jin-woo appeared beside her. "Let me help. I've got it." "Cynthia, let me help." She relented, and he carried most of her bags up to her floor. At her door he paused. "The smell from your apartment," he said carefully. "It's jollof rice today, right?" She blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "I looked it up. After that first time. I wanted to understand." He shifted her grocery bags in his arms. "It smells really good. Like warm and homey." Something in Cynthia's chest softened. "Do you want to try some? I made way too much." The surprise on his face was almost comical. "Really? Really? Consider it payment for carrying my groceries." Jin-woo ended up staying for dinner. Cynthia watched nervously as he took his first bite of jollof rice, but the moan of pleasure that escaped him was all the review she needed. "This is incredible," he said, already going for another forkful. "Why does it taste better than anything I've ever eaten?" "Because it's made with love and the perfect amount of seasoning." Cynthia grinned, ridiculously pleased by his reaction. "My mother's recipe. She'd kill me if I messed it up." "Tell me about her. Your family." So Cynthia did. She told him about growing up in Lagos, the chaos and beauty of it. About her mother who was a headmistress and her father who was a civil engineer. About her two younger brothers who still called her every week to tease her about living in Asia. About how she'd always dreamed of working internationally, of seeing the world beyond Nigeria. "Why Seoul?" Jin-woo asked. "Why not? It's vibrant, modern, completely different from home. I wanted an adventure." She took a sip of water. "What about you? Have you always lived in Seoul?" "Mostly. I studied art in New York for a few years, but Korea called me back. My grandmother was getting older, and I wanted to spend time with her." His voice softened. "I'm glad I did. I got 2 more years with her before she passed." They talked until late into the night, sharing stories and laughing over misunderstandings, like how Cynthia had thought Jin-woo was glaring at her in the elevator when really he was just tired and forgot to put on his contacts. Or how Jin-woo had assumed Cynthia was being passive-aggressive by wearing loud heels when really she just loved her shoe collection. "We really were both assholes," Cynthia said, shaking her head. "The worst." Jin-woo grinned. "But at least we're self-aware assholes now." When he finally left, Cynthia found herself wishing he'd stayed longer. The apartment felt too quiet without his low laugh and terrible puns. The dinners became a regular thing. Sometimes Cynthia cooked Nigerian food. Egusi soup, pounded yam, pepper soup that made Jin-woo's eyes water, but he ate anyway. Sometimes Jin-woo cooked Korean dishes. Kimchi jjigae, bulgogi, japchae that Cynthia declared better than the restaurant version. They started watching movies together, sprawled on one couch or the other, arguing good-naturedly about subtitles versus dubbing. Jin Woo introduced her to Korean cinema. Old Boy, The Handmaiden, Parasite. Cynthia made him watch Nollywood films, laughing at his confusion over the dramatic plotlines and theatrical acting. "Why is everyone shouting?" he asked during a particularly intense scene. "That's just how we do it. More drama, more emotion." Koreans would just stare intensely and let a single tear fall. Boring. Where's the passion? But it was the quiet moments that started to mean the most. Jin Woo painting while Cynthia worked on her laptop, the comfortable silence broken only by the scratch of his brush and the click of her keyboard. Cynthia cooking while Jin Woo sat at her kitchen counter, telling her about his latest commission or gallery showing. He started leaving small gifts at her door. A painting of the Lego skyline he'd worked on from photos she'd shown him, a jar of homemade kimchi when she mentioned missing it, a book of Korean poetry with his favorite pieces marked. She reciprocated with Nigerian snacks from the African store in Itaewon, a Bluetooth speaker for his painting sessions, a journal with handmade paper where he could sketch ideas. Their friends started to notice. "So are you two dating or what?" Cynthia's coworker asked one day. "No, we're just friends. Neighbors." But even as she said it, Cynthia knew it wasn't entirely true. The way her heart jumped when she heard his door open. How she found excuses to knock on his door. The lingering touches when they passed each other things. The way his eyes tracked her movements when he thought she wasn't looking. They were dancing around something neither was quite ready to name. 6 weeks after the rainy night, Jin Woo invited her to his gallery opening. "It's small," he said, suddenly shy in a way she'd never seen him. "Just a group show with some other local artists. But I'd really like you to be there." Cynthia showed up in a stunning Ankara print dress that hugged her curves, her hair styled in elegant box braids. The moment she walked into the gallery, Jin Woo's eyes found her across the room, and the look on his face made her skin heat. He was wearing all black as usual, dress pants and a silk shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal his tattoos. His hair was styled back, and he looked sophisticated and artistic and unfairly attractive. "You came," he said when she reached him. "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it." He showed her his pieces, large abstract works that she'd seen in various stages in his apartment, but seeing them properly displayed took her breath away. Bold slashes of color, chaotic and beautiful, each one conveying raw emotion. This one. Cynthia stopped in front of a canvas dominated by deep blues and vibrant oranges. "What's it called?" "Storm," Jin Woo said softly, standing close behind her. "I painted it the night you stayed over. After you fell asleep. I couldn't stop thinking about rain and new beginnings and how sometimes the storm is what you need to wash everything clean." Cynthia turned to look at him, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Jin Woo. Ah, there you are." A tall Korean woman approached them, elegant and assured. "Jin Wooya, who's your beautiful friend?" "This is Cynthia." "Cynthia, this is Minji, the gallery owner." They chatted for a few minutes, Minji praising Jin Woo's work and asking Cynthia about her impressions. But Cynthia was hyper-aware of Jin Woo beside her, the heat of his body, the way his hand kept almost touching the small of her back. Throughout the night, they were separated by well-wishers and art enthusiasts, but Cynthia always knew exactly where Jin Woo was in the room. Their eyes kept finding each other across the crowd, lingering, saying things neither was brave enough to voice. At the end of the evening, Jin Woo walked her to the taxi stand. "Thank you for coming," he said. "It meant a lot to me. Having you there. Your work is incredible, Jin Woo. Really. You should be proud." "I am. But I was more nervous about what you'd think than anyone else there." He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the careful styling. "Why is that?" "I don't know." But she did know. They both did. A taxi pulled up, and Cynthia knew she should get in. Should go home, maintain the careful friendship they'd built. But she didn't move. "Cynthia." Jin Woo's voice was rough. "If I kiss you right now, would you hate me again?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Only if you don't." He closed the distance between them, one hand cupping her face, the other settling on her waist. His lips met hers, and it was nothing like she'd imagined. Softer, sweeter, tinged with promise rather than urgency. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jin-woo rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "So have I. Come home with me." It wasn't a question, not really. Cynthia nodded, and they took the taxi back to their building together, hands intertwined, the air between them electric with possibility. They barely made it through Jin-woo's apartment door before they were kissing again. Urgent this time, weeks of tension finally finding release. His hands tangled in her braids, her fingers traced the lines of his tattoos through his shirt. "Wait." Jin-woo pulled back, breathing hard. "I want this. God, I want this. But I need you to be sure." Cynthia looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd gone from enemy to friend to something more. Who learned about her culture instead of dismissing it. Who painted his emotions because words were never quite enough. Who looked at her like she was his favorite piece of art. "I'm sure," she said, and kissed him again to prove it. He lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the bedroom. They took their time undressing each other, mapping new territory with hands and lips. Jin-woo traced every curve of her body like he was memorizing it, murmuring in Korean how beautiful she was. "What are you saying?" Cynthia gasped as his mouth found the sensitive spot on her neck. "That you're perfect. That I can't believe I wasted so much time hating you. That I—" He stopped himself, but the emotion in his eyes finished the sentence. When he finally entered her, they both gasped at the connection. It felt like something clicking into place, like finding home in the most unexpected person. They moved together, building a rhythm that was somehow both new and familiar. Jin-woo was attentive, watching her reactions, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into him. "Look at me," he commanded softly, and when her eyes met his, the intimacy of it was almost overwhelming. That's when it happened, when pleasure crested and crashed over her, and his name tore from her throat. Jin-woo. He followed her over the edge moments later, her name a prayer on his lips. Afterwards they lay tangled together, skin still slick with sweat, hearts gradually slowing. Jin-woo traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, and Cynthia felt more content than she could remember being in years. "So," Jin-woo said eventually, amusement coloring his voice. "Still think I'm the worst neighbor ever?" Cynthia laughed and smacked his chest lightly. "The absolute worst. Terrible taste in music, questionable opinions about food. 5Y. Hey, I love your food now. Rude notes, loud painting sessions at 3 a.m. That was one time. But I suppose you have some redeeming qualities." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "Like being an incredible artist. And a good kisser. And pretty decent in bed." "Pretty decent?" He raised an eyebrow. "You were literally screaming my name. Once. One time. I can make it happen again," he said. His voice dropping to that low register that sent shivers down her spine. "Prove it," she challenged. He did. The morning sun filtered through Jin-woo's bedroom curtains, painting golden stripes across tangled sheets and intertwined limbs. Cynthia woke slowly, registering the warmth of Jin-woo's body against her back. His arm draped possessively over her waist. "I can hear you thinking," he murmured against her shoulder, voice rough with sleep. "I'm not thinking. You're definitely thinking. Your whole body tenses up when you overthink." He pressed a kiss to her bare shoulder. "Talk to me." Cynthia turned to face him, taking in his sleep-mussed hair and soft eyes. "What are we doing, Jin-woo? What do you want us to be doing?" "That's not an answer." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her hip. "I want to date you. Properly. I want to take you to dinner and hold your hand in public and introduce you to my friends as my girlfriend." His eyes met hers. "But only if that's what you want too." Relief flooded through her. "I want that. I was just afraid you'd want to keep this casual. Nothing about the way I feel about you is casual, Cynthia. He pulled her closer. I went from hating you to not being able to imagine my day without you in it. That's not casual. That's terrifying. She laughed softly. Terrifying. You scare the hell out of me. You're brilliant and beautiful and you don't take any of my shit. You make me want to be better. He tucked a braid behind her ear. Yeah, terrifying. You scare me too, she admitted. I didn't come to Seoul looking for this. For you. Best things in life are the ones you don't plan for. They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making love again. Slower this time, learning each other's bodies in the daylight. When Cynthia's stomach growled loudly, Jin-woo laughed and insisted on making breakfast. Watching him move around the kitchen shirtless, tattoos on full display as he made Korean-style eggs and toast, Cynthia felt something dangerous blooming in her chest. Something that felt a lot like falling in love. Dating Jin-woo meant navigating two cultures, finding the places where they overlapped and learning to appreciate the differences. Some things were easy. They both valued family, understood the pressure of parental expectations, appreciated good food and art. Other things required patience and communication. 3 months into their relationship, Cynthia got promoted at work. It was everything she'd been working toward. Leading her own team, overseeing major campaigns, a significant salary increase. She should have been ecstatic. Instead, she felt overwhelmed. The new role meant longer hours, more responsibility, and less time for everything else, including Jin-woo. She tried to balance it all. Waking up earlier to prep dinner before work. Answering Jin-woo's texts during lunch breaks. Rushing home to spend a few hours with him before collapsing into bed. Exhausted. But it wasn't enough. She could feel the strain building, could see the concern growing in Jin-woo's eyes even as he assured her he understood. It came to a head 3 weeks after her promotion, when she cancelled their date night for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Jin-woo showed up at her apartment anyway. We need to talk, he said, and the seriousness in his voice made her stomach drop. I know I've been busy, but this project is almost done and then... Cynthia, stop. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. This isn't about one project or one busy week. You're shutting me out. I'm not shutting you out. I'm just... managing a lot right now. Managing. That's what you call us now. Something to manage. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? His voice rose slightly, unusual for him. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like your job became your priority and I became an afterthought. Anger flared in her chest. My career has always been a priority, Jin-woo. You knew that when we started dating. I'm not asking you to choose between your career and me. I'm asking you to make space for both. To let me support you instead of pushing me away. I'm not pushing you away. Yes, you are. He took a breath, visibly trying to calm himself. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you told me about what's actually going on at work instead of just saying it's fine? Cynthia felt tears prick her eyes. I didn't want to burden you with my stress. That's what I'm here for, Cynthia. The good and the bad. You don't have to carry everything alone. Yes, I do. The words burst out of her. I've always had to. My whole life, I've had to work twice as hard to get half as much. Being a black woman in corporate tech means I can't show weakness, can't ask for help, can't ever let them see me struggle. If I do, I'm done. Jin-woo's anger melted into understanding. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, and the dam broke. Cynthia cried into his chest, for the pressure she was under, for the loneliness of trying to do everything alone, for the fear that she was failing at the one good thing in her life. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to shut you out. I just didn't know how to let you in. Shoo, it's okay. We're okay. He stroked her back gently. But Cynthia, you need to talk to me. Not just when things are falling apart but before they get there. I can't help you if I don't know what you're dealing with. I know. You're right. I'm not used to having someone who wants to help. He pulled back to look at her, wiping tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. Get used to it. I'm not going anywhere. Even when you're stressed and snappy and canceling dates. I'm here. Even when I'm the worst. Especially then. He kissed her forehead. Now, tell me about this project that's been eating you alive. They spent the next hour on her couch, Cynthia explaining the complexities of her new role, the difficult client, the team member who wasn't pulling their weight. Jin-woo listened without trying to fix everything, just providing a sounding board and occasional insights. You know what I think, he said when she'd talked herself out. I think you're doing an incredible job under impossible circumstances. And I think you need to stop expecting yourself to be perfect. Perfectionism has gotten me this far. And it's also making you miserable. He tucked a braid behind her ear. What if you delegated more? What if you asked your team to step up? What if they can't? What if they can, but you've never given them the chance? It was a fair point. Cynthia had been so focused on proving herself that she'd taken on everything herself, not trusting others to meet her standards. I'll try, she said quietly. I'll try to do better. With work and with us. That's all I'm asking. They ordered takeout and watched terrible reality TV. Cynthia tucked into Jin-woo's side, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The project was still there, the pressure still real, but at least she didn't feel alone in it anymore. 6 months into dating, Jin-woo suggested she meet his mother. Are you sure? Cynthia asked nervously. I've heard Korean mothers can be particular. She's been asking about you for months. I think she's more excited than nervous. He squeezed her hand. But I won't lie, she might have questions. About us. About the future. The future. Cynthia, we've been together for 6 months. We practically live together. My mother isn't stupid. She knows this is serious. It was serious. Somewhere between the fights and the makeups, the late-night conversations and the early morning coffee runs, between learning each other's languages and cultures, Cynthia had fallen completely in love with Park Jin-woo. But meeting his mother felt like a test she wasn't sure she could pass. They met at a traditional Korean restaurant in Insadong. Jin-woo's mother, Park Sun-hee, was elegant and put together, with sharp eyes that assessed Cynthia thoroughly in the first 30 seconds. So you're the Nigerian girl, she said in Korean, which Jin-woo translated nervously. Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to meet you. The conversation started stiffly. Mrs. Park asked about Cynthia's family, her education, her job. Cynthia answered carefully, aware she was being evaluated for suitability. Then Mrs. Park asked, Do you love my son? The bluntness of it caught Cynthia off guard. Jin-woo looked mortified. Iyama. Yes, Cynthia said clearly. I do. Very much. Mrs. Park studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good. He needs someone strong. His father left when he was young and Jin-woo, he keeps people at a distance. But you, he lets you close. That means something. The tension eased after that. Mrs. Park asked about Nigeria with genuine curiosity, shared stories about Jin-woo's childhood, and by the end of the meal, was insisting Cynthia call her Iyamoni, and promising to teach her to make Jin-woo's favorite dishes. That went better than expected, Jin-woo said on the way home, looking relieved. She's lovely. Intimidating but lovely. She liked you. I could tell. How? She invited you to family dinner next month. She only does that for people she approves of. Cynthia felt a warm glow of acceptance. One family down, one to go. Telling her own family was more complicated. How do you explain to traditional Nigerian parents that you're dating a Korean man covered in tattoos? Cynthia put off the conversation for weeks, until her mother finally cornered her during their weekly video call. Cynthia, you're glowing. What's going on? Her mother asked suspiciously. Nothing, Mummy. Just work going well. Don't lie to me, girl. I'm your mother. I know when something's different. Her eyes narrowed. Is it a man? Cynthia's silence was answer enough. Ah, and you weren't going to tell me. What's his name? What does he do? Is he Nigerian? His name is Jin Woo, he's an artist and… No, he's Korean. Silence on the other end. Then, Korean. As in Korea, Korean. Yes, Mummy. Your father. Come here. Your daughter is dating a Korean. The next 30 minutes were chaos. Her mother had questions. How did they meet? Was he serious? Did he understand Nigerian culture? Her father wanted to know about his job stability and intentions. Her brothers jumped on the call to tease her mercilessly. Does he eat our food? Her mother asked. Yes, Mummy. I've taught him to cook some dishes. He loves jollof rice. He better. If a man can't appreciate good food, what's the point? Can we see him? Her younger brother, Chaik, asked. Cynthia hesitated, then called Jin Woo over. He appeared on camera looking nervous. Good evening, sir, ma'am, he said carefully in English. It's an honor to meet Cynthia's family. There was a beat of silence as her family took in his tattoos and piercings. Then her mother smiled. He's handsome, very handsome, but skinny. Cynthia, are you feeding him? Yes, Mummy. Feed him more. He needs meat on his bones. The conversation dissolved into laughter, and by the end, even her father seemed cautiously approving. Take care of my daughter, he told Jin Woo sternly. She's precious to us. She's precious to me too, sir. I promise to treat her well. After they hung up, Cynthia collapsed against Jin Woo in relief. That was terrifying, he said. You did great. They liked you. Your mother thinks I'm too skinny. That's how you know she already considers you family. Nigerian mothers show love through feeding people. He laughed and pulled her close. I love your family. They're loud and warm and they clearly adore you. They adore you too. My brother already added you to the family group chat. Sure enough, Jin Woo's phone buzzed with messages from her brothers, already welcoming him and threatening him in equal measure. As fall turned to winter, they settled into a comfortable rhythm. Cynthia kept her own apartment for the sake of having her own space, but she spent most nights at Jin Woo's place, their lives increasingly intertwined. She learned to recognize his moods without him having to explain. When he needed silence to work, when he needed her to sit with him even if they weren't talking, when his insomnia was winning and he needed her to drag him to bed. He learned her patterns too, that she needed alone time to recharge after big work events, that Sunday mornings were sacred for phone calls with her family, that when she cooked Nigerian food on random Tuesday nights, it meant she was homesick and needed comfort. They developed their own traditions. Friday nights were for trying new restaurants around Seoul. Saturday mornings meant sleeping in, then lazy breakfasts in bed. Sunday evenings they'd cook together, meal prepping for the week ahead while listening to a mix of Afrobeats and K-indie. Jin Woo taught her basic Korean, laughing at her pronunciation but patient in his corrections. Cynthia taught him Yoruba phrases, delighting in his attempts to wrap his tongue around tones and sounds that didn't exist in Korean. Omo, you're killing me with this pronunciation, she teased as he butchered another greeting. It's hard. Korean only has like one tone. Yoruba has how many? 3 basic ones, but it's all about context and… See, now you look terrified. Because I am. How do you speak 3 languages? Or if you count French. And you speak 2, so don't act like it's that impressive. It is impressive. Everything about you is impressive. These moments, simple, domestic, full of laughter, were when Cynthia felt most certain about them. This wasn't just infatuation or physical attraction. This was partnership, friendship, the slow building of a life together. They danced around saying, I love you for months, both feeling it but neither quite brave enough to say it first. It finally happened on the most unremarkable day imaginable. Cynthia was sick. A terrible winter flu that left her feverish and miserable. She tried to tough it out alone, but Jin Woo had heard her coughing through the wall and immediately came over. You sound like you're dying, he said, feeling her forehead. Have you eaten? Not hungry. That's not what I asked. Wait here." He disappeared and returned with soup, medicine, and determination. He spent the day taking care of her, making sure she ate, bringing her water, changing the cool cloth on her forehead, even reading to her when she was too feverish to focus on the TV. At some point, half delirious, she looked at him sitting beside her bed, reading aloud from a book in English just so she could understand it, and the words slipped out. "I love you." Jin-woo stopped reading mid-sentence. He carefully marked his page and set the book down. "Say that again." "I love you, Jin-woo. I'm in love with you." His smile was radiant. "I love you too. I've loved you for months. I was just waiting for the right moment to say it. And you think me being sick and gross is the right moment. I think you being vulnerable and letting me take care of you is the perfect moment. I think any moment with you is the right moment." He leaned down to kiss her forehead. "I love you, Cynthia Okafor. Even when you're feverish and sneezing on me. Romantic. I try." After that they said it constantly. Whispered it during quiet moments, shouted it across the apartment when one of them left, texted it in the middle of workdays. The words felt new and exciting each time, a promise they were both committed to keeping. A year into their relationship, Cynthia received news that shook their world. She was being offered a promotion that would require relocation to the company's Singapore office for a year, possibly longer. It was an incredible opportunity. Regional director, overseeing operations across Southeast Asia, nearly double her current salary. It was everything she'd been working toward. It also meant leaving Jin-woo. She agonized over it for days before telling him, running through scenarios in her head. Long distance could work, right? People did it all the time. A year wasn't that long. But she knew the statistics. Long-distance relationships had low success rates, especially international ones with time zone differences and travel costs. When she finally told him, they were having dinner at her place. She watched his face carefully, seeing shock, then hurt, then something that looked like resignation flash across his features. "Singapore," he said quietly. That's amazing, Cynthia. You'd be stupid not to take it." "I haven't decided yet." "What's there to decide? It's your dream job." "It's complicated. Because of me." He set down his fork. Don't give up this opportunity because of me. Jin-woo, I love you. I don't want to leave you. And I love you, which is why I won't let you turn this down. You've worked too hard, come too far." His voice cracked slightly. "We'll figure it out." "You say that, but long distance sucks." "No. But what's the alternative? You stay, resent me for holding you back, and we fall apart anyway." He reached across the table for her hand. "At least this way we have a chance." They talked late into the night, weighing options. Jin-woo could potentially move with her. His art wasn't location dependent, but his mother was in Seoul. His career was just taking off in Korea, and asking him to uproot his entire life felt unfair. "What if we tried long distance for 6 months? Cynthia proposed. "See how it goes. If it's working, we continue. If it's not, we're honest about it." Jin-woo's jaw tightened. "I don't want to lose you, Cynthia. But I also don't want to be the reason you don't become everything you're meant to be." The decision was made. Cynthia accepted the Singapore position with a start date 3 months away. Those 3 months became precious. Each day waited with the knowledge that they were temporary. They made the most of every moment. Her last night in Seoul was painful in its ordinariness. They didn't go out, didn't do anything special. Just made dinner together in his apartment. Jollof rice and kimchi jjigae, their fusion meal that represented everything they were, and ate while watching a movie neither of them paid attention to. "I'm going to call you every day," Jin-woo said. "Morning and night. Singapore is only 1 hour behind, so the time difference isn't bad. I'm going to send you pictures of everything. Every meal, every sunset, every stupid thing that makes me think of you." They made love that night like it was both a first time and a last time. Tender and desperate, joyful and sad. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms. Neither of them could sleep. "Promise me something," Jin-woo said into the darkness. Promise me that if it gets too hard, if the distance is too much, you'll tell me. Don't just suffer in silence. I promise. Same goes for you. I promise. Morning came too soon. Jin-woo insisted on going to the airport with her, despite her protests. I'm not saying goodbye in the apartment, he said firmly. I'm going to see you off properly. At the airport, they stood at the departures gate, neither willing to let go first. This isn't goodbye, Cynthia said, tears streaming down her face. It's see you later. See you later, Jin-woo agreed, his own eyes wet. I love you, Cynthia Okafor. I love you, Park Jin-woo. Don't forget me. Impossible. He kissed her one last time, deep and full of promise. Go. Before I throw you over my shoulder and carry you back home. She forced herself to walk away, through security, not letting herself look back until she was at the gate. When she finally turned, she could see him still standing there, watching. He raised his hand in a wave and she waved back, fresh tears falling. On the plane, she opened her phone to find a text from him. Already missing you. Already counting down the days until I see you again. You're gonna do amazing things in Singapore. I'm so proud of you. She texted back through her tears. I love you too. This is going to work. We're going to make it work. Believe in us. The first month in Singapore was brutal. Cynthia threw herself into work, learning the new role, meeting her team, navigating office politics in a new country. The job was even more demanding than she'd anticipated, and there were nights she fell into bed exhausted, having barely spoken to Jin-woo beyond a quick text. But they kept their promise. Every day, no matter how tired, they found time to talk. Sometimes it was just 5 minutes, both of them half asleep. Other times they'd video call for hours, showing each other their days, cooking together over video, falling asleep with the call still connected. 2 more months, Jin-woo said at the airport. You're coming home for Christmas. I can make it 2 more months. Me too. We can do this. We can do this. Month 4 was when things got difficult. Cynthia's project was behind schedule, requiring her to work overtime and weekends. Jin-woo had a major exhibition coming up, requiring the same. Their time zones might have been only an hour apart, but their schedules were completely misaligned. They made it through the rough patch, but it left both of them shaken. Love alone wasn't enough. They needed commitment, effort, constant choosing each other even when it was difficult. When Cynthia finally flew back to Seoul for Christmas, 3 weeks off work, it felt like coming home in every sense. Jin-woo was waiting at arrivals with flowers and the biggest smile she'd ever seen. This time when she ran to him, their kiss was witnessed by everyone and neither of them cared at all. Never leave again, he murmured against her lips. I have to go back. I know. But for now you're here. You're really here. Those 3 weeks were bliss. They celebrated Christmas with his mother, who'd embraced Cynthia completely and made enough food to feed an army. They had virtual Christmas dinner with Cynthia's family, everyone laughing and talking over each other through the screen. They spent New Year's Eve at Bosingak Bell, bundled up against the cold, surrounded by thousands of people counting down to midnight. When the bell rang and fireworks exploded overhead, Jin-woo pulled her close. When Cynthia had to fly back to Singapore, the goodbye was still hard, but tempered with hope now. They had a plan. They had an end date to the complete separation. 4 months, Jin-woo said at the airport. Then I'm coming to you. We've got this. We've got this, she agreed. Jin-woo arrived in Singapore in May, during the hottest, most humid month of the year. This is hell, he said within 5 minutes of stepping outside the airport. How do you live here? Air conditioning and acceptance, Cynthia laughed, delighting in seeing him in her world now. Come on, let's get you home. Her apartment was small, a studio in the city center that was all she could afford on her own, but they made it work. Jin-woo transformed one corner into his studio, canvases and paint supplies taking over what had been her meditation space. Cynthia didn't mind. Watching him create while she worked from home was its own kind of meditation. Jinwoo found a gallery that was interested in showing his work and connected with Singapore's vibrant art community. Cynthia introduced him to her expat friends and work colleagues. They explored the city together. Hawker centers in Chinatown, Little India's colorful shops, the Southern Ridges hike, Sentosa beaches. "I could see us living here," Jinwoo said one evening as they watched the sunset from Marina Barrage. "It's different from Seoul, but it has its own energy. Its own beauty." "Yeah." Cynthia's heart swelled with hope. "You're not just saying that." "I'm not just saying that. I mean, I miss Korean food and actual seasons that aren't hot, and slightly less hot. But if you're here, I'm home. That's what I've learned from all this distance. Home isn't a place. It's you." She kissed him deeply, not caring about the families and tourists around them. "I love you so much." "I love you too. Cynthia, this year of long distance has been the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's also shown me that I want to do hard things with you. I want to build a life with you, wherever that ends up being." Jinwoo. "I'm not proposing. Not yet. I want to be clear about that. But I am saying that I want a future with you. Real one. Marriage, maybe kids someday if we want them, growing old together. The whole terrifying, wonderful thing." Tears pricked Cynthia's eyes. "I want that too. All of it. So we make a plan. You finish out your contract here. I split my time between Singapore and Seoul, building my career in both places. Then in a year we decide together where we want to be permanently. And we make it official." "Official." "Married, Cynthia. I'm talking about marrying you. Eventually. When the timing's right." She laughed through her tears. 1 year later, Cynthia's contract in Singapore was complete. She and Jinwoo had decided to return to Seoul. Her company agreed to a transfer back to the Korea office, and Jinwoo's career was exploding there with gallery representation and commissions flooding in. But before they left Singapore, Jinwoo had one more surprise. He'd been acting strange all week, nervous and secretive. Cynthia assumed he was stressed about the move, the logistics of shipping his art supplies and her belongings back to Korea. On their last Saturday in Singapore, he insisted they go back to Marina Barrage. "Again. We've been there so many times," Cynthia protested. "Humor me. One last sunset in Singapore." So they went, finding their favorite spot on the grass, watching the sky turn brilliant shades of orange and pink. Other couples and families dotted the lawn, everyone enjoying the perfect evening. "Do you remember when I said I wanted a future with you?" Jinwoo asked suddenly. "How could I forget? You proposed without proposing." "Well, I'd like to fix that. The not actually proposing part." He shifted to kneel on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Cynthia's breath caught. "Jinwoo. Cynthia Okafor, you burst into my life like a hurricane. You challenged me, frustrated me, made me laugh, made me crazy. You taught me that love isn't just about finding someone you can live with. It's about finding someone you can't imagine living without. You're my home, my inspiration, my future. Will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a ring, a stunning blend of traditional and modern, with both ruby and emerald stones set in a unique artistic design. "The ruby for Korean tradition, the emerald for Nigerian colors," he explained. "I wanted something that was us. Both of us." Cynthia was fully crying now. "Yes. Yes. Of course yes." Jinwoo's hand shook as he slid the ring onto her finger. Then he stood and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed and cried simultaneously. Around them, people clapped and cheered. Someone shouted congratulations in Mandarin. A little girl declared it so romantic in English. "I love you," Cynthia said, cupping his face in her hands. "I love you so much. Even when you were the worst neighbor ever. Especially when I was the worst neighbor ever. That's when you fell for me, admit it. Your ego is massive, you know that? And yet you just agreed to marry me. I have questionable judgment. The absolute worst." He kissed her again, deep and sweet and full of promise. "But you're stuck with me now. I wouldn't have it any other way." 2 years later. Do you think it's a girl? I know it's a girl. And she's going to be just like you. Brilliant, beautiful, stubborn, and absolutely terrifying in the best way. If she's like me, good luck to us both. We'll need it. He kissed her, slow and sweet and full of the love they'd built from the ashes of animosity. But we've done harder things. We went from enemies to this. We can handle anything. Cynthia thought back to that rainy night, to the moment everything changed. To the morning she'd woken up in Jean Wu's apartment and realized maybe, just maybe, she'd been wrong about him. To every fight and makeup, every laugh and tear, every choice they'd made to keep choosing each other. You know what, she said. You're right. We can handle anything. Together. Together. Outside, Seoul sparkled with lights, the city that had brought them together and watched them fall in love. Inside the gallery, surrounded by art that told their story, Park Jin-woo and Cynthia Okafor stood wrapped in each other's arms, proof that sometimes the best love stories begin with the worst first impressions. And if their daughter asked someday how they met, they'd tell her the truth, that Daddy complained about Mommy's cooking, Mommy reported Daddy for being too loud, and somehow, impossibly beautifully, they fell in love anyway. Because that's what love does. It finds you when you're not looking. It turns enemies into allies, strangers into family, neighbors into forever. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it makes you scream someone's name in the best possible way.